Hey, I'm Jake. I make RPG supplements and videos about Pathfinder 2, or Pfftoo. I love Pfftoo, and as a longtime player of D&D, I want to share with you the things that I find along the way, hopefully in a way that's easy to digest and fun. Today we're going to be continuing our series on the Advanced Player's Guide Archetypes, starting with Medic, and then Pirate, and then Poisoner. Let us begin. Medic. The Medic dedication at level 2 requires that you be trained in medicine and have the battle medicine feat. The battle medicine feat just allows you to treat wounds in combat as a one-action activity. The target still becomes immune to it like normal, and you can't remove the wounded condition. But like everything about this archetype is based around healing in combat, including raising people from the dead. When you first take the dedication, you become an expert in medicine. That by itself is pretty darn cool, because it's easier to heal your allies, even if it's just out of combat. Also, you can try to roll a higher DC to heal people more hit points. The details are on the screen, but that's basically how it works. And once per day, you can use battle medicine on a creature that's temporarily immune. So you can use battle medicine twice in the same combat on the same person, if you want to. The first level 4 feat is awesome. It's like how other classes, usually martial, have a combined movement and attacking ability. This is combining movement and healing ability. So Doctor's Visitation uses either one action or two actions. You move to provide immediate care to those who need it. Stride, then use one of the following: battle medicine or treat poison. You can spend a second action to instead stride and then administer first aid or treat a condition if you have it. So it just saves you extra time in combat to move to your allies faster to heal them quicker. It's really cool. Unfortunately, it is a flourish, so you can only do it once per turn. But so what? At 4th level, that's great time to be able to maximize your action cost. Or efficiency. Maximizing your cost would be bad. Treat Condition is another level 4 feat. It takes 2 actions, and you can use your medicine skill to cure clumsy, enfeebled, or sickened. You have to roll for it, of course, so you might not actually succeed. But if you get a critical success, then you can reduce the condition value by 2. You can only pick one of those 3. But this is an excellent just addition to healing people in combat. And what's great about this archetype is that anybody can take it. It doesn't have to be anybody who has normally spells for healing. It can be like your archer or something, so they can just like rush around the casters and heal them if they need to, because squishy. Another thing I want to point out about Treat Condition is it's a skill feat. This is like the best skill feat I've ever seen. Probably. Somebody's gonna argue. But it probably is. At level 6, the archetype feat that's available is again a skill feat. This is a great archetype. I'll talk about my summary judgment in a moment. So Holistic Care at level 6 is a skill feat that you have to be trained in diplomacy and treat condition. You provide emotional and spiritual care. Add frightened, stupefied, and stunned to the list of conditions you can reduce with treat condition. It's great. It's perfect. Holistic Care just gives you an extra ability to heal people and counteract conditions that nobody normally gets. And to be able to do this at 6th level is impossible if you're not a caster. But if you are a caster, it would take up one of your skill slots or spell slots, and it doesn't with this. And it's just a skill feat. At level 8, there is another feat that the medic gets that's in a different book. It's the Knights of Last Ball. It's called Preventative Treatment. And what it does is you roll your medicine check ahead of time to treat one specific condition that you could normally treat with treat condition. So in your case at this level, if you already took the earlier feats, then you could treat somebody for frightened, because you know you're going to be fighting undead, and they like frightening people. And it lasts for 1 minute, or until the person uses the check that you rolled. Actually, the GM rolls it because it's supposed to be secret. Or you use preventative medicine on them again. This is awesome because this does not act as though you used medicine or treat condition on them. It's a separate ability, so it doesn't make them immune to that check because you're not using the same kind of check. You can use preventative medicine on everyone multiple times if you know what you're going to be facing. Yes, it's niche, but it's very useful niche. It's like a weird flexible niche ability. Anyway, I like it because it's extremely useful in a variety of situations, but you do need intel first. So I guess this would be most useful if your GM tends to share information ahead of time about what you're going to be fighting, or if you have somebody in the group who's really good at gathering information in some way, magically or otherwise. Resuscitate, level 16 feat for the medic. Takes 3 actions, you bring someone back from the dead. They have to have fallen within the last 3 rounds, so you basically just like run over them with shock paddles, yell clear, and you can wake them up. You have to make a DC 40 medicine check, but level 16 is not very hard. You can do that. It acts as though they were under the effects of raised dead, except that it doesn't remove the wounded condition it had before dying, and it increases it by 1, which sucks because there's actually an upper limit to how many times you can do this. Whether you succeed or fail, that one person is immune to resuscitate that day, but you can still do it to other people if you need to. This is a great little quick ability that somebody can take, even just by dipping into this class like at level 16. You just take the 2nd level ability and then the 16th level ability, and you suddenly have shock paddles. This is great. So overall, the medic is a super useful archetype. It's, I would say, on par with the herbalist. They have slightly different applications. I mean, you could take both, and they'd both be useful, but then you wouldn't really be doing anything except those actions. So, maybe you wouldn't. And there's a little bit of overlap. And this uses medicine and not nature, so they don't perfectly work together, but you could actually take both and use both. This is very useful for removing conditions, which herbalist doesn't really do very well. So overall, great archetype. Take it, especially if you're not a healer. If you are somebody who wants to diversify a little bit and you don't have somebody else in the group that can heal in combat, somebody should take that. If you have no plans to take anything else, take that. Somebody in the group could easily be the medic and herbalist, and you wouldn't even need a healing caster at all. The pirate. One of our YouTube subscribers, Amir Hussein, I see you, wondered if I was going to continue being critical of these archetypes. Because Paizo's paying attention to the channel now. Yes. The pirate's one of them that I'm going to be critical about. Let's get into it, shall we? Level 2 archetype feat. Pirate dedication. You have to be trained in intimidation. And you become trained in sailing lore. Which is always going to be useful, I'm sure. No, seriously, if you already were trained in sailing lore, you could become expert. If somebody wanted to use sailing lore, or rather if they took sailing lore, and I was a GM, I would allow them to roll whenever anything about the adventure involved anything about the ocean. Because yeah, it's not technically sailing, but if you have sailing lore, then you also know about how to sail on the ocean. So if you're trying to study like tidal patterns or something, you should be able to roll that. Makes sense to me. And you ignore the effects of difficult terrain or uneven ground caused by a ship's movement. Okay. It happens all the time. You also gain the boarding assault action. It's a flourish. It's a 2-action activity. You can either stride twice or attempt an acrobatics check to swing on a rope up to twice your speed. Most of the time, that's all it's going to do. So if you're not on a ship, that's what it does. Which is fun. It's not always going to be all that useful, but man, it's dramatic. And if you're playing a swashbuckler, you'll probably get panache for it. If you boarded or disembarked from a boat or similar vehicle during this movement, you can make a melee strike that deals 1 additional weapon damage die. Also not going to come up much. So overall, the pirate dedication, or the pirate archetype, is probably going to be a set adventure archetype that gets applied to all the players, or at least is an option for all the players so you can make use of it and then train out of it later. It's not a bad idea to do in that case if there's going to be a lot of on-ship activity. Level 4 feat. Pirate weapon training. You become trained with the hatchet, rapier, scimitar, and whip. Whenever you gain a class feature that grants you expert or greater proficiency with a given weapon or weapons, you also gain the proficiency rank for these weapons. This is not an awesome selection. This is not a skill feat. This is a feat. I don't think that's worth it. You know what? Let's pause here and let's look at the bounty hunter. So we're going to look at the bounty hunter now. Tools of the trade. Also a level 4 feat. This time for the bounty hunter. You're trained with the following weapons: bola, sap, and whip. And those are more rare weapons than the others that we mentioned. So it might be more difficult to get proficiency in these weapons. You gain access to bolas. Like, no matter what, you can just make or find or buy bolas, which are fun. There's a magic one that allows you to capture a group of enemies at once. I just love that. Whenever you gain a class feature that grants you expert or greater proficiency in a given weapon or weapons, you also gain that proficiency in the weapons listed. Makes sense, same as the last one. But it also gives you the ability to take no penalty when making a non-lethal attack with a weapon without the non-lethal trait. So at least it's a little bit of something more, and it doesn't just include like a rapier and a hatchet. They could have just made it a little bit better, and it would have been on par with the bounty hunter. As it is, I don't know anyone who is interested in taking the pirate would bother taking that feat. Okay, I guess it's nice if there's like a niche reason to take it, because that's their build. Thrilled. Rope runner. Level 4 feat. The saving grace of this is that it's a skill feat. So it is, in my opinion, in line with the power level of a skill feat. So this is decent. You have to be trained in acrobatics and athletics to take it, and I should back up. When you take pirate at the outset, you will want to be trained, or better, in intimidation, acrobatics, and athletics, because the pirate archetype uses all of those skills to some degree or another. Rope runner. You gain a climb speed of 15 feet, but only on ship's rigging or similar ropes. I would ignore that ship's rigging and just let it be as long as there's a rope, because that's the point of it. You like run on ropes, or you're just really used to crawling up them or crawling across them. Anyway, it says only on ship's rigging or similar ropes. Whenever you succeed at an athletics check to climb a rope or an acrobatics check to balance on a rope, you get a critical success instead. You aren't flat-footed while climbing or balancing on a rope. Skill feat, totally great. If it's restricted to just ship's rigging, it's quite a lot less great. Walk the plank. Level 8 feat. It's a 2-action activity. You attempt a demoralize. The check gains the incapacitation trait, so it won't work very well on a boss or somebody who's higher level than you. But in addition to the normal effects, you can also force the target to stride up to its speed. You choose the path the target takes, and it does so as part of your walk the plank action. It does have limitations, but that's awesome. An intimidation that makes somebody move without... It's a fear effect that isn't like making them run away in fear, it's making them move along a predestined path that you're determining for them. Predetermined path, that's what I meant. You can't force the target to move into a harmful space, one where it will take damage, fall, provoke reactions, or similar, unless the result of your check to demoralize was a critical success. The target then becomes temporarily immune to walk the plank for 24 hours. But you can, in theory, get a critical success and tell someone to walk off a cliff. And they will. Granted, it's not super powerful. And yes, of course, it has a lot of flavor because the pirate is based on flavor. But it's also potentially extremely useful and funny as hell. I've had it was in a D&D campaign, but I've had somebody charm someone and have them walk off a cliff. I wished in the end that the cliff hadn't been there. But it was funny. The Firebrand's book has several feats, some of which work for the pirate, so I'm going to go over those as well. All of these feats that I'm going to be going over from the Firebrand's book for the pirate are marked uncommon, and they have the access trait, which means that they are only uncommon if you're not a firebrand of the 2nd rank. If you are a firebrand of the 2nd rank, they're no longer uncommon, they're common. So you can still take these if you're not a firebrand member. So, Broadside Buckos, level 4 feet. This, you're trained with working in close quarters with people. Like, this could even be underground in tunnels or something. During your daily preparations, you can name up to 5 crewmates, people, you will be working with that day. If an enemy is within reach of you and at least 2 of your crewmates, that enemy is flat-footed against you. So it's in any orientation. There doesn't have to be a straight line drawn between them to flank. It's just easier to flank people. So, is it worth a 4th level feat? It really depends on the composition of your common adventure. If you're often going underground and you can use this underground, like I pretty much have almost all of my adventures underground, or in some sort of complex that's stone, then yes, this is actually quite useful. In fact, you might just take it and then train out of it later if it's not working with this GM. Cutting Flattery is a 5th level skill feat. So that's better than some of these other feats, just because it's easier to get. When you succeed at your check to coerce a creature, the target's attitude toward you improves by 1 step to a maximum of friendly, and they don't become unfriendly 1 day later. The whole idea is that you are, like, coercing them to do something by intimidating them, but it's like a very gentle, friendly intimidation. Like, you're saying, I'm sure you're smart enough not to do that, because then somebody might get hurt. So, like, you're like, seeming nice, so they don't become unfriendly or pissed off and hostile with you a day later. I like the feel, but it's also really cool as a skill feat. Level 6 feat. Watch this. It's a reaction ability. If an ally misses or critically misses an enemy, you can see their attack, you declare verbally that on your next turn, you're going to make a strike against the same enemy and that you will hit them. If your attack hits, you deal additional damage equal to twice the number of damage dice. So, like, extra 2 damage? Maybe extra 4 damage? To use your reaction? And a freaking feat. When will this be worth it? When will this... I mean, yes, it can sometimes do something. Even in that case, no. I mean, it just isn't worth it. Just skip it. Just skip it. I feel so much shame for the pirate. The next Firebrand's feat is level 10 feat, Hook 'em. It's 2 actions, it's a flourish. You can only do it once per turn anyway because it's 2 actions. I guess he could be hasted. Anyway, if a rope is within your reach, or you have a rope or grappling weapon in your hand, essentially if the other end of a rope that you're holding onto is anchored somewhere somehow, then you can take hold of it and swing up to twice your speed. If you end your movement next to an enemy, you can attempt an athletics check to grapple them, and if you succeed, you tie them up in your rope. Why is this not a swashbuckler feat? This is the definition of swashbucklery. Come on, buckle my swash. Anyway, it's cool. I think the coolest thing about it is that you don't have to roll any kind of check to make the swing. The level 2 feat for pirate, you do have to make a check. With this, you don't. You just grab it and swing. It's useful for drama, not much else. Well, okay. It's also useful for just extra movement. If you can figure out how to, like, carry a grappling hook with you all the time, then you can just get extra movement. Yeah, I like the tying them up, but it's not going to happen that often. Anyway, this should totally be a swashbuckler feat. Like, GMs, if you're watching, just port this over to swashbuckler. Just allow swashbucklers to take this, because at some point, if someone's playing a swashbuckler, they're gonna try this. You know it. Let them live out their best Three Musketeers fantasy. And that is the pirate. Before the Firebrand's book came out, I thought the pirate was irredeemably crap. But I thought that partly because watching another video on YouTube, there was something that was indicated that I just didn't realize how that worked because I was new. I like that you could actually make someone walk the plank or walk off a cliff if you critically succeeded at an intimidation, and that's not all that difficult if you're focusing on intimidation. So that part was cool. But since Firebrands came out, there are actually a few other abilities that are useful for the pirate in other situations, not just on a ship. So I don't think this is useless anymore. It's still niche, but it's a broader niche. Some of the abilities are purely for fun's sake, but that's also why we're playing this game. The Poisoner. I gotta say, I love the opening line. People are so delightfully fragile when exposed to the glories of nature. And I also gotta say, this is what every poisoner looks like. It's pretty much everybody is this guy, bald, tattooed. His little shoulder thing is a snake head. That's a poisoner. That's what they look like. Poisoner dedication. The poisoner is sort of the inverse of the herbalist. So you have to be trained in crafting, and at the second level, when you take the feat, you gain the basic alchemy benefits, but they can only be used for poisons. You gain batches of infused reagents per day equal to your level. Your advanced alchemy level for creating these is 1 and doesn't increase on its own. It increases later, just like the herbalist. So yes, as soon as you take this, you learn arsenic and a bunch of other poisons. And then you start having fun playing with poisons. Level 4 feat, Poisoner's Twist. The requirements are, your last action was a successful melee strike that dealt damage against a target that is afflicted by a poison, and you know which poison. Usually it's going to be a poison you inflicted. So this is an action that you take, that's a one action activity. Right after your last action dealt damage and probably poisoned them, you essentially twist the wound and expose more flesh to the poison, or embed it deeper, or make it enter their bloodstream faster. So you deal 1d6 damage of the required strike's damage type and 1d6 poison damage to the target. It eventually increases, but only at 18th level. So you just take this action to do a little bit more damage without having to roll another hit. It's good, it's decent, it's just extra damage. Expert Poisoner, level 6 feat. Your advanced alchemy level for poison increases to your level -3. So it moves up to level 3 at this point if you took it at normal progression, instead of level 1. So you just gained more powerful, more damaging poisons. Level 6, Poison Coat. It's a reaction. If a creature adjacent to you hits you with a melee unarmed strike, they get poisoned by the poison that you have applied to your outer clothing or jacket of some type. I like this line. In nature, certain animals are covered in venomous spines, such that even touching them is deadly. It takes 10 minutes to set this up. It has to be a contact or injury poison. You can only have one such poison at a time. And when this person hits you, you react and they are exposed to the poison. You don't have to roll to hit or anything. They just get poisony stuff on them. And they have to roll their save. Acquired Tolerance at level 8 is a reaction. The trigger is you fail a save against a poison. You get to reroll the triggering check and use the second result. For the rest of the day, after you have used this ability, you can use it again over and over, but only against the same type of poison that you rolled against the first time. A small amount of poison taken at non-lethal doses can help the body build up a resistance against a more deadly dosage. They don't know that you've built up a tolerance to iocane powder. The Poisoner has several additional feats that it has access to, and they matter for this archetype. That's one way in which it differs from the Herbalist. So I'm going to go over them very briefly. 4th level Poison Resistance, it gives you resistance to poison equal to half your level. 6th level Poison Weapon allows you to coat poison onto one of your weapons, and when you hit with the weapon, you also expose them to the poison. Tenacious Toxins at 6th level increases the duration of your poisons by the first poison duration interval, up to a maximum of twice its total duration. And level 18 feat, Chemical Contagion. It means that if you inflict a poison on an enemy, you can cause it to spread to another enemy. I see this as like you poison a wound and you push that guy against the other one who's also wounded, and like their wounds connect and they get poison in their blood. It doesn't make a lot of sense unless it's that way. Or if you have other ideas, let me know in the comments. How would you spread poison to someone else? And that is all for today. Thank you for joining me on this tour of How Can You Kill a Guy? I love doing these. Please let me know if you disagree with what I said about the pirate. I would love to hear that they suck more, or that they suck less. Especially the pirate. Yes. And everybody should take medic or herbalist, unless you have other plans. Thank you to all my patrons, and all of you soon-to-be patrons. I appreciate you being here so I can do this work. You can check out our website for downloads of the builds that I did and walkthroughs, and just because there's other stuff there that's fun. You can check out our Patreon to see if you want to become a patron. We are starting a giveaway this month. They are, in this case, 2 40mm dice that Storm has made. Should I tell them who you are? Do they know you're my girlfriend? Did you know we make dice? Maybe not, because I never said so. We're doing a giveaway. We're giving away 2 40mm dice with a cool story that I wrote. And in order to be involved in the giveaway, you have to become a patron at the $5 level or higher. And we do giveaways like this every month. It won't always be 2 40mm dice, but it'll be something cool. And you can know ahead of time, and we'll put pictures up too. In fact, you might see it on a community post right away. And that's all I have to say about that. Yep.